Captain Hayes stood in the observation window of Station Meridian and looked out at the alien ships. Dozens of them floated in space like predators waiting for their moment. Each vessel represented a different species, a different government, and a different set of interests. Hayes had been to many places in his life, but this was different. This was the day Earth would tell the galaxy what it truly wanted. The Galactic Council chambers were vast and built to intimidate. The walls stretched high above the gathered delegates, and the center floor held a crystalline platform where visitors would speak. Ambassador Victoria had arrived 2 days earlier to prepare the presentation. She was calm but tired. The weight of representing an entire planet was not something she took lightly. Hayes moved through the corridor toward the chambers. His uniform was crisp and perfectly pressed. Every insignia showed his rank and his achievements. He was not a political man, but the president had asked him personally to stand beside during this meeting. Hayes was a soldier, a warrior who had spent 30 years building Earth's defense systems. Now he was here to deliver a message that might change everything. The doors to the chamber opened before them. The room was filled with hundreds of beings. Some had bodies like humans. Others were shapes of light and energy. Some were hard to see at all, existing in forms that human eyes struggled to understand. In the center, elevated above all others, sat Council Elder Vex. The collective had ruled the Galactic Council for almost 200 years. Vex was a being made of crystalline structures that caught and refracted light. The Elder's voice was calm and measured when it spoke. The meeting began with formalities. The Council welcomed Earth to the galactic stage. They spoke of trade opportunities and technology that could make human life easier. They promised protection against hostile species and access to resources that existed nowhere in Earth's solar system. It was an attractive offer, too attractive. Hayes knew that nothing in this galaxy came without a price. After an hour of discussion, Ambassador stood and moved toward the speaking platform. Hayes remained in the viewing section, watching the reactions of the gathered delegates. Was a skilled diplomat, and her words were measured and thoughtful. She spoke of humanity's achievements and Earth's desire to join the greater community of galactic species. Then she spoke the words that Hayes had helped her prepare. Earth will participate in trade, said. Her voice was steady and clear. Earth will share knowledge and work toward peace, but there is one condition that cannot change. Earth's military fleet remains under Earth's control only. No external power will have access to our ships. No council, no alliance, no individual species will command or study our defense systems. This is not negotiable. This is not open for discussion. This is the foundation on which Earth's participation in the galactic community will be built. The chamber went silent. Vex tilted forward, his crystalline body catching the light. You are new, Vex said. His voice carried a tone that might have been amusement. Your species has existed as a spacefaring people for only 40 years. You have traveled to your nearby planets, and you believe this makes you ready to stand in this chamber and make demands. You are very young, you are very small, and your arrogance will cost you. Did not move. We understand our position, she replied. But Earth has walked a difficult path. Our world is harsh, our climate changes. Our survival has always depended on our own strength and our own decisions. We will not surrender that principle now, even as we join your galactic community. We are not asking for permission. We are statting what will be. Another delegate stood. It was a merchant from the species. There were traders and deal makers, and was known throughout the galaxy for his ability to find common ground where none seemed to exist. Perhaps we can find compromise, offered. Perhaps Earth could simply allow our scientists to study 1 or 2 of your vessels. There would be no loss of control. No takeover, just knowledge sharing between equals in the pursuit of science and understanding. Hayes felt his jaw tighten. This was the beginning. This was exactly how it always started. The initial rejection, followed by the offer to compromise, the proposal that sounded reasonable to those who did not understand the deeper game. No compromise, Hayes said. The words came from the viewing section, and many delegates turned to look at him. Hayes moved forward and stood beside Ambassador. He was a soldier in a room of diplomats and merchants. I am Admiral Hayes. I command Earth's military forces. I am here to deliver a second message. Any attack on Earth will be met with our full force. Any attempt to take our ships will be seen as an act of war. Any pressure to surrender our autonomy will be rejected. Earth stands alone in this galaxy if that is what survival requires. We did not travel across the void to become slaves. We did not build our strength to give it away. The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates laughed. Others spoke rapidly in their own languages. Vex rose to his full height, and the crystalline being seemed to glow with something like anger. "Then you have made your choice," Vex said. "You have chosen isolation and pride over participation and progress. Earth will learn that the galaxy does not wait for young species to understand their place. You will regret this decision. Everyone in this chamber will remember that you were warned. When Earth falls, when your pride is broken, know that this moment could have changed everything." Hayes met Vex's gaze without flinching. "We understand the warning," he said. "We are not afraid of it." Ambassador and Admiral Hayes turned and walked from the chamber. Behind them, the delegates of 100 species watched Earth's representatives leave. Some seemed angry. Some seemed intrigued. Most seemed to believe that Earth had just made a massive mistake that would cost the 6 months had passed since the warning. Earth's orbital stations buzzed with activity as ships came and went. Trade was beginning to flow. Merchants from a dozen species now visited Earth's territories. They brought goods and technology and information about the galaxy. They also brought something else. They brought temptation. Ambassador Victoria stood in the main conference room of Earth's government headquarters in Geneva. Across the table sat the merchant who had proposed compromise at the Galactic Council meeting. Was a being that resembled an insect with intelligence beyond measure. His compound eyes moved constantly, tracking movement and reading emotion. He had brought a gift. On the table lay a blueprint, not a physical object, but a holographic projection that showed a weapons system unlike anything Earth had ever created. It was compact, efficient, and according to the specifications provided, it could generate energy pulses that could disable an enemy ship without destroying it. Selective, powerful, revolutionary. "This is just a gift," said. His mouth made clicking sounds as he spoke English. "A demonstration of what we could achieve together. Imagine Earth with technology like this. Your defense capabilities would increase by 500%. Your people would be safer. Your planet would be more secure." Studied the hologram. She had been trained to read people and intentions. She could tell that was not lying about the technology. The specifications were genuine. The problem was the invitation that came with it. "All we ask," continued, "is that you allow us to study one of your military vessels. Just one. We want to understand your drive systems. We want to know how you achieve such efficiency in space travel. In exchange, we give you this technology. We give you others. We help Earth rise to a level of development that would take you decades to achieve alone." Said she would discuss it with her government. She did not commit to anything, but she took the hologram with her. Meanwhile, across the city, Dr. Henry Foster sat in his office at the Advanced Technology Institute. His screens displayed images of human progress and achievement. He was one of Earth's leading scientists, a man who had dedicated his life to understanding how things worked. A visitor had come to see him. Her name was Speaker, and she represented the collective. They had offered Dr. Foster something that made his heart race: genetic enhancement technology. It was not about creating super soldiers or invincible warriors. It was about reducing human susceptibility to disease, extending making the human body more resistant to stress and injury. It was about making humanity better in fundamental ways. "Your species has great potential," said. She had a form that resembled a humanoid shape, though her skin seemed to shift in color. "But you are limited by your biology. You age quickly. Your bodies are fragile. We could change this. Your people could live for centuries. You could be healthier, stronger, more capable than you are now." Dr. Foster listened carefully. This was not a military proposal. This was something that could genuinely benefit all of humanity. "What do you need from us?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Just 2 of your research vessels," replied. "We want to study your biology and your medical technology. We want to understand how you have adapted so well to your harsh world. In exchange, we give you what we know. We help you become a stronger species." The proposals kept coming. Merchant ships arrived with more blueprints, more possibilities, more dreams of advancement. A faction within Earth's government became very interested in these offers. Senator Wells led the charge. She was ambitious and brilliant, and she believed that Earth's future lay in reaching out and accepting help from the more advanced galactic powers. "We cannot remain isolated forever," Wells argued during a government meeting. "Yes, we said no at the Galactic Council, but that was a negotiating position. That was our opening move. Now we negotiate, we reach agreements, we gain advantages. This is how the galaxy works. The species that stand alone eventually fall." Admiral Hayes attended these meetings. He listened carefully to every argument. He did not speak often, but when he did, his words carried weight. "The pattern is always the same," Hayes said during one particularly tense debate. "First, the gift, then the request to study our technology, then the request for 2 ships, then 4 ships, then they ask for military officers to join collaborative efforts, then they ask for access to our communications networks, then they know everything about us and they take what they want. I have studied military history for 40 years. This is how conquest begins. It does not begin with armies. It begins with compromise." Wells dismissed his concerns. "You are afraid of progress," she said coldly. "You want to keep Earth isolated and backward. You want to maintain military control over everything because you are afraid of sharing power." Hayes did not argue. He simply waited. He knew that fear was a weapon he should not use in this debate. Instead, he began to prepare. He worked with his engineers and his military scientists to develop contingency plans. He expanded Earth's defense grid and upgraded the weapons systems they already possessed. He trained pilots and crew members in combat scenarios that assumed the worst possible outcome. He prepared Earth not for peace, but for war. The merchants kept visiting. More proposals came. The Collective, a mysterious faction that operated on the edges of known space, sent an emissary with an offer so tempting that even Admiral Hayes had to acknowledge its danger. Faster-than-light drives, ships that could travel between stars in days instead of months, technology that would make Earth into a spacefaring power that could rival the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. "Just 1 ship," the emissary said. "Allow us to study 1 vessel. We will return it within a year with the technology installed. Your species will leap forward 300 years in development." Senator Wells called an emergency session of Earth's government. She presented all the offers simultaneously. She showed the benefits. She showed the possibilities. She showed how Earth could become a great power within a generation. She proposed a motion to allow 3 military vessels to participate in what she called collaborative research missions. The vote was close. Many politicians wanted to believe that advancement was possible without risk. Many wanted to see humanity rise quickly. But the motion passed. By a narrow margin, Earth's civilian government voted to surrender control of 3 military ships for study by alien powers. The crisis tore through Earth's government like a lightning strike through still water. Admiral Hayes stood before President Alan Carter in the presidential office. Armed security personnel lined the walls. The tension in the room was so thick that every person present felt like they were suffocating. "I am ordering you to comply," Carter said. His face was red with anger. "The government has made a decision. You will obey that decision or you will face court-martial." Hayes did not flinch. He had expected this. He had prepared for it. "With respect, sir, I cannot obey an order that I believe will destroy the nation I have sworn to protect. The 3 ships you have authorized for transfer are not research vessels. They are military warships. They carry weapons. They carry our defensive strategies. They carry the knowledge we have accumulated over decades of space exploration. To surrender them is to surrender Earth's future." "You are a soldier," Carter replied. "Soldiers follow orders. That is the foundation of the military system." "Yes," Hayes agreed. "Soldiers follow orders, but soldiers also have a duty to refuse orders that violate their oath to protect their country. I took an oath to defend the Constitution and the people of Earth. That oath is superior to any order that conflicts with it. I cannot, in good conscience, surrender those ships." The president leaned back in his chair. The argument they were having was as old as government itself. The conflict between civilian control and military judgment. The question of who decides what is truly in the nation's interest. "Remove him," Carter said to the security personnel. But before the security team could move, the doors to the office burst open. General Stone, the second in command of Earth's military forces, entered with several high-ranking officers behind him. Stone had been Hayes's lieutenant for 15 years. He was loyal to Hayes because Hayes had proven himself loyal to the soldiers under his command. "Sir," Stone said, addressing the president, "the military has voted. We stand with Admiral Hayes. We will not authorize the transfer of those vessels. If you attempt to force this action, we will be forced to assume that the civilian government is no longer acting in Earth's best interest. The military will take protective measures." This was a coup waiting to happen. Carter understood it immediately. The president was in a position where he could either back down or risk a military uprising that could tear the nation apart. He chose to back down. "You will regret this," Carter said to Hayes. "The consequences of your defiance will be severe." Hayes nodded. I understand the cost, sir, but some costs are necessary to prevent greater catastrophe. Over the following days, the crisis spiraled outward. Senator Wells went before the media and attacked Admiral Hayes relentlessly. She called him a warmonger. She called him a traitor to humanity's future. She said that his refusal to accept help from more advanced civilizations was rooted in fear and primitive military thinking. Some of the media agreed with her. News broadcasts split between those who supported Hayes and those who supported Wells. But something happened that changed everything. A junior diplomatic aide named Christopher Maxwell was working late in the communications office when he discovered something unusual. He was reviewing encrypted messages that had been flagged as suspicious. Most were routine. Then he found a series of messages between Senator Wells and Merchant. The conversations were not simple negotiation. They were planning. Maxwell read the messages carefully. They discussed transfer dates for the ships. They discussed what the aliens would do with those vessels. The final message made his blood go cold. The message was from Wells, dated just 3 weeks earlier. It contained a single phrase that changed everything. Once we have access to your military vessels, the Coalition will be able to begin Phase 2 of the operation. Your species will offer no resistance once we understand your defense systems. Maxwell immediately took the messages to Admiral Hayes. Hayes read them in silence. When he finished, he did not look surprised. He looked vindicated. "Get me a complete copy of everything," Hayes said. "Every message, every coordination point, every reference to this coalition." It took 3 hours for Maxwell to compile everything. What emerged was a clear picture of a massive coordinated effort between dozens of alien species. They had been working together the entire time. The offers of technology were not genuine. They were tools of manipulation. The goal was simple: gain access to Earth's military secrets, learn how their ships worked, understand their defense systems, and then invade. The messages detailed invasion timelines. They discussed which species would take which territories on Earth. They talked about harvesting Earth's resources and relocating or enslaving the human population. This was not collaboration. This was conquest disguised as diplomacy. Senator Wells had been a willing participant. She had been promised technology, wealth, and power in the new order that would follow. She would be appointed as the administrator of Earth for the alien coalition. Her ambition had blinded her to the truth. Admiral Hayes brought this evidence to Senator Wells himself. He met her in a secure location and showed her the messages. He played her the encrypted communications from the alien coordination meetings. He made sure she understood the full scope of what she had been part of. Wells's face went pale. She had believed that she was advancing humanity's interests. She had been naive. She had been manipulated by beings far more intelligent and far more ruthless than she could have imagined. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought they were genuine. I thought they wanted to help us." "They did want to help themselves," Hayes replied coldly. "And they used your ambition to do it. Now they will have to find another way." The discovery of the alien conspiracy changed everything. President Carter called an emergency session of the government. The evidence was presented. The media was informed. The truth spread through Earth's population like wildfire. Hayes appeared before the government and before the media with the full evidence of the alien plot. He did not gloat. He did not use the moment to enhance his own power. He simply stated the facts. The aliens had tried to trick Earth. They had used gifts and promises. They had found weakness in Earth's leadership and exploited it. They had failed only because someone had stood firm. "They will be back," Hayes told the assembled leaders of Earth. "But next time they will come with weapons instead of words. I suggest we prepare for that day." The attack came without warning, exactly as Admiral Hayes had predicted. The alien coalition emerged from jump space 3 million kilometers from Earth. The sensor arrays on Earth's orbital stations screamed out alerts. The alien fleet was massive. 130 warships, each bristling with weapons. Some of the designs resembled ships that the aliens had studied through their interactions with Senator Wells and the corporations she had influenced. Other designs were alien and strange, built by species that Earth had never encountered before. Captain Drake stood in the command center of Earth's primary defense station. She was a pilot with 20 years of experience in space combat simulations. Now those simulations were about to become real. Drake was calm, professional, and ready. Admiral Hayes had chosen her to command because she thought like a warrior, not a politician. "All stations report ready," Drake said into the communications network. Fighter wings are deployed. Defense grid is at full power. We are ready. The alien fleet approached slowly, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They believed that the technology they had stolen or studied through Earth's captured ships and agreements with corrupt politicians would be enough. They believed that a species so young and so isolated would panic at the sight of such force. What they did not know was that Admiral Hayes had spent every moment since the Galactic Council meeting preparing for exactly this. While the government debated, and the merchants tempted, and the politicians compromised, Hayes had been building. He had designed new weapons systems. He had trained pilots in combat tactics that no alien species had ever encountered. He had created defense systems that adapted and changed based on the enemy's movements. Most importantly, Hayes had hidden 80% of Earth's military fleet. While the government argued about transferring 3 ships to the aliens, the bulk of Earth's remaining forces had been moved to hidden positions around the solar system. They waited in the shadow of asteroids. They waited behind the moon. They waited in positions where the alien sensors could not easily detect them. As the alien fleet moved into attack range, Admiral Hayes gave the order. The hidden fleets emerged from their positions. 80 Earth warships appeared on the alien sensors almost simultaneously. They moved with precision and purpose. They did not move like a defensive force. They moved like a force that had already won. Captain Drake launched the attack. Earth's fighters screamed out from their launch bays. The pilots were young and brave and angry. They had grown up knowing that an attack like this was possible. They had trained for it their entire military careers. Now they faced the reality of actual combat. The initial exchange of weapons fire lasted only minutes, but it changed the entire nature of the battle. The alien ships fired their weapons with confidence, using technology that they believed was superior. But Earth's defense systems adapted to each new weapon type. The shields adjusted frequency. The counterattacks were launched with precision. The alien commanders realized almost immediately that something was very wrong. The aliens had studied Earth's stolen ships, but those ships represented only a small fraction of Earth's total capability. The weapons they had analyzed were outdated compared to what Earth's engineers had built in secret. The tactics they had learned through Senator Wells and her contacts represented only basic military strategy. What they were facing now was something far more advanced. Admiral Hayes watched the battle from the main command station. His face was calm, but his eyes were focused. He watched the dance of ships and weapons fire with the eye of someone who understood warfare at its deepest level. He had calculated these scenarios thousands of times. He had tested them against artificial intelligence systems designed to think like alien commanders. He was ready. The battle shifted. Earth's forces began to push back the alien coalition. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before began to explode. The alien commanders tried new tactics, but Earth's forces anticipated each move. It was as if the humans could read the aliens' minds, always one step ahead, always prepared for the next maneuver. The leader of the alien coalition was a commander from the Vex Collective, had coordinated the attack and had been promised control over Earth's resources and population. Now watched as the invasion that was supposed to be simple and quick turned into a disaster. Sent message after message to the other alien commanders, trying to reorganize the forces, trying to find a way to recover. But there was no recovery. Earth's forces were too well prepared. They had anticipated everything. The battle raged for 6 hours, and at the end, the alien coalition was broken. 27 alien ships had been destroyed. Another 40 had been badly damaged and were retreating. The remaining forces had been pushed back. His flagship was surrounded. Drake herself piloted a fighter that struck the final blow. The ship exploded in a cascade of energy and fire. Died with the crew, never understanding how a species so young and so isolated could have defeated such a powerful force. The surviving alien ships attempted to flee back to jump space. They wanted to escape, to regroup, to try again at another time. But Admiral Hayes had anticipated this as well. He had positioned forces to cut off their escape routes. The aliens would have to fight their way out, and fighting was the last thing they wanted to do now. The retreat became a rout. Alien commanders surrendered rather than face more combat. The surviving ships that made it to jump space did so crippled and damaged. They would not return to Earth space for a very long time, if ever. The victory was complete, but Admiral Hayes did not order pursuit. When the president asked why, Hayes responded simply, "Because victory is not about vengeance," he said. It is about survival and peace. We have broken their attack. We have proven we cannot be conquered. That is enough. If we pursue them now, we become the aggressors. We become what they tried to make us think we were. Instead, we recover our ships. We demonstrate that we are capable of mercy. We show the galaxy what humanity truly is. The 3 captured vessels were recovered intact. The alien technology aboard them was intact as well. Hayes ordered that the alien weapons be studied and understood, but the data would not be weaponized. It would be shared with neutral scientific institutions across the galaxy. It would belong to all species that wanted to understand. The casualties were significant. Over 200 human military personnel had died in the defense of Earth. Thousands more were wounded, but the planet had survived. The species had survived, and Earth had proven that it could stand alone in the galaxy and prevail. As the debris of the battle drifted in space, Admiral Hayes stood alone in the command center and looked out at Earth. The Galactic Council chambers had been rebuilt. The great gathering place where the important powers of the galaxy made their decisions had been damaged during the chaos that followed Earth's victory. Now it stood again, stronger than before, a symbol that the chaos was over and a new order was beginning. Council Elder Vex had called a general assembly. Every species with representation was present. The message had been clear. This meeting would determine the future of galactic relations. The outcome would reshape how species interacted with each other. It would set new rules, new laws, new principles. Admiral Hayes arrived with Ambassador Victoria and President Alan Carter. The human delegation was small but dignified. They did not carry weapons into the chamber. They did not appear ready for conflict. They appeared ready to negotiate and to listen. Vex stood and addressed the assembly. The crystalline being's voice carried a tone that no one had heard before. It was not defiance or anger. It was something else. It was respect. "The species called human have taught us a lesson," Vex said slowly. "A lesson that we needed to learn. We believed that their young civilization would fall easily. We believed that their youth meant weakness. We believed that their isolation meant they were unprepared. We were wrong on every count." The chamber was silent. This was an unprecedented moment, a council elder admitting error before the entire assembly. Vex continued. "They told us clearly and plainly that their military forces would not be compromised. They gave us a warning. They told us that this decision would not change. And when we ignored that warning and attacked with overwhelming force, they destroyed our invasion fleet and brought several of our most powerful species to the point of defeat." A delegate from the collective stood. "We lost our entire research division in that conflict," the representative said. "Earth's defensive systems were far more advanced than we understood, but rather than turning that advantage against us, they showed restraint. They did not pursue our retreating forces. They did not attempt to conquer our territories. They proved something important." "What did they prove?" asked another delegate. "They proved that strength and morality are not opposed," they said. "They proved that a young species can be both powerful and honorable. They proved that they can be trusted." President Alan Carter stood and approached the speaking platform. His presence commanded attention. He had survived the internal crisis in Earth's government. He had faced the threat of military coup. He had emerged not as a weakened leader, but as someone who understood that Earth needed a new direction. "We stand before you," Carter said, "not as conquerors. We stand as a nation that has learned what it means to maintain our principles. When we said no to the Galactic Council, we meant it. When we refused to compromise our military autonomy, we were not being arrogant. We were being honest." He paused and let his words settle into the chamber. "Earth has lost people in this conflict. We have lost soldiers and scientists and civilians. We have lost ships and stations. The cost of maintaining our principles was high, but the cost of abandoning them would have been higher. We would have become servants to powers that did not respect us. We would have surrendered our future to beings who saw us only as resources to be exploited." "What do you propose?" Vex asked. It was Ambassador who answered. She had been quietly consulting with representatives from several species. She had been working on something, a new framework, a new way of thinking about how the galaxy's species should relate to each other. "We propose the Hayes Doctrine," said, "a fundamental principle of galactic relations. Every species retains complete autonomy over its military forces. No external power will have access to another species' defense systems. No monitoring, no sharing, no study without consent. Each species decides for itself what level of cooperation is acceptable." "This is impractical," objected a representative. "How can we maintain peace without shared military oversight?" "By respecting each other's independence," replied. "By building trust through honest dealing, not through control. By recognizing that species that are free to maintain their own defense systems are more likely to be truthful partners than species that are forced to surrender control." Admiral Hayes stood then. He did not approach the platform. He spoke from where he stood, and his voice carried through the chamber. "I have built Earth's defense systems based on a simple principle," Hayes said. "Fear creates enemies. Respect creates partners. We do not need to control other species' military forces to trust them. We only need to see them treating their own species with honor and their own commitments with seriousness." He paused and looked directly at Council Elder Vex. "We will not seek revenge against those species that attacked us. We will not demand reparations or territorial compensation. We will accept apologies and we will move forward. Because a galaxy where all species understand that they are responsible for their own defense, and where all species respect each other's right to maintain that defense, is a galaxy where peace is possible. War becomes a choice, not an inevitability. Trust becomes the foundation of relations, not suspicion." The debate in the chamber lasted for 3 full days. Species argued about the Hayes Doctrine. Some opposed it, some supported it, but gradually a consensus emerged. The principle made sense. Each species would maintain its own military autonomy. In exchange, each species would be held responsible for how it used that autonomy. The vote was taken. The Hayes Doctrine passed with overwhelming support. It became the foundation of a new galactic law. Species that violated it would face consequences, but species that honored it would find a galaxy where trust and commerce and genuine cooperation became possible. Senator Wells was brought to trial for her actions. She faced charges of treason and conspiracy. The trial was conducted by human courts, not by the Galactic Council. This was important. It demonstrated that Earth would judge itself by its own standards, not by the standards imposed by external powers. Wells was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. Some saw this as harsh, others saw it as merciful, but all understood that Earth took the consequences of her actions seriously. Admiral Hayes visited Earth 3 weeks after the trial ended. He took a shuttle down from orbital station and stood on the surface of his planet. The air was fresh and clean. The sky was blue. The cities of human civilization rose around him, but the most important thing he saw was the people. Humans going about their lives, working and building and planning for the future. He walked to a memorial that had been constructed in honor of the soldiers who had died defending Earth. There were 217 names carved into the stone. 217 people who had given their lives so that humanity could remain free. Hayes placed his hand on the stone and closed his eyes. Ambassador found him there. She stood beside him in silence for a long moment. "The galaxy is changing," she said finally. "Because of what we did, because we stood firm and because you were prepared." "The galaxy is changing because species are learning to respect each other," Hayes replied. "We simply showed them that respect matters. We showed them that principle is worth the cost. Now other species are starting to believe that too." They stood together, looking out over Earth. The planet rotated slowly beneath them. Somewhere on that planet, children were being born who would grow up in a galaxy transformed by the choice that had been made in the Galactic Council chambers. A galaxy where Earth's word meant something, where humanity's commitment to its principles had changed everything. Hayes thought of the warning Vex had given, the prediction that Earth would fall. Instead, Earth had risen, not through conquest or violence, but through the simple act of refusing to compromise on what mattered, by standing alone when necessary, by being prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The sun was setting on Earth's western horizon. The sky turned orange and red. In that light, Admiral Hayes understood what he had truly been protecting, not just territory or resources or military superiority. He had been protecting something far more important. He had been protecting the right of humanity to choose its own path, to maintain its own principles, and to stand with dignity among the stars. That protection would continue forever, and the galaxy would never forget the young species that had taught them all what strength truly meant. End of story. Rough the viewing screen. The planet was blue and beautiful and alive. It was home, and he had kept it safe. The galaxy was watching now, not with amusement or contempt, but with respect. The young species from the small blue planet had shown that they could not be taken lightly. Earth had a place among the stars, and nobody could take that away. Senator Wells was arrested. She faced charges of treason and conspiracy, but even as she was led away, Admiral Hayes knew that the real test was still coming. The aliens would not accept this failure. They would move forward with their invasion, and when they did, Earth would be ready. The dark shape of something terrible was approaching, but this time humanity would face it with open eyes and prepared defenses. The warning had been given, the choice had been made, war was coming and nothing would stop it now. Admiral Hayes was ordered to transfer the vessels. He refused. "No," he said simply to the president. "I will not do this. This is a mistake that will cost us everything. I am ordering all military personnel to stand down. The ships will not be transferred. This is where the line must be drawn." The government demanded his obedience. Hayes stood firm. The crisis deepened, and the galaxy watched to see what Earth would do next. Human species dearly. Hayes did not believe this. He had spent his entire life preparing for threats he could not yet see. He had built defense systems that could adapt to any enemy. He had trained pilots and engineers who could think faster than the machines they commanded. He did not know when or how the Galactic Council would move against Earth, but he knew they would try. And he was ready. The shuttle carried Hayes and away from Station Meridian. Below them, the alien fleet did not move. There was no attack, no immediate retaliation, but Hayes knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had heard Earth's message. Now the galaxy would respond, and that response would change everything.